This organization controls the planet in secret. There are a few very strong businesses out there, and you've undoubtedly heard of a few of them. Examples are ABC, Apple, and Koch Industries. However, there is a chance that you are unfamiliar with this one. BlackRock. This business was established in 1988, and in the past 30 years, it has expanded to become well known as the business that essentially controls the globe, managing almost $10 trillion worth of assets. What exactly is BlackRock, then? And how did a risk management firm end up being the world's biggest asset holder, being in charge of potentially millions of common people's funds? A worldwide American investment management company with its headquarters in New York City is called BlackRock Inc. It began as a risk management and institutional fixed income asset manager, but eventually grew to the point where it could operate internationally, with 70 offices spread over 30 nations and clients in 100 nations. What's the story here then? In 1988, Larry Fink, who would later serve as the company's chairman and CEO, along with a select group of individuals, including Robert Escobedo, Susan Wagner, Barbara Novick, Ben Golub, and Hugh Frater, formed BlackRock. Ralph was late. By the time this business became profitable within a few months, and the group's assets had increased by 4 times to $2.7 billion the following year. I must have struck some sort of deal with the devil. In 1992, the company first used the name BlackRock. In the same year, the company was in charge of $17 billion in assets, which had grown to $53 billion by age 94. BlackRock's rise was, to put it mildly, meteoric. BlackRock would expand throughout the years through both organic growth and its numerous acquisitions. BlackRock's assets under management would reach an absurd $325 billion by 2004 as a result of its acquisitions. Back then, it wasn't nearly as absurd as it is now, but it was already significant enough that the U.S. government hired BlackRock to assist in mitigating the effects of the 2008 financial crisis. BlackRock would surpass all other asset managers by 2009. BlackRock has been referred to as a ghost haunting Wall Street for a number of years and is bigger than the largest bank in the world, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. But for the most part, it continues to be a mystery. However, that hasn't stopped it from drawing some well-deserved criticism. You can't become as big as BlackRock without pissing off a lot of people. After all, their holdings have drawn criticism for their impact on the environment. In addition to ranking among the top 10 shareholders in 7 of the 10 largest coal producers, BlackRock is one of the top 3 shareholders in virtually every significant oil firm in existence. These would be rather damning critiques, but BlackRock makes an effort to counter them, even turning around and making significant investments in sustainability and environmental preservation. That's accurate. Even justified criticisms can't stop this giant from expanding. I truly mean it when I refer to it as a behemoth. BlackRock oversees assets total several trillion dollars, or around 10% of all financial assets worldwide. But its scope goes well beyond merely purchasing and keeping stocks and bonds. Large investors, including state funds, pension funds, insurance firms, central banks, and financial ministries, receive advice from BlackRock. They use their extensive resources to invest in businesses all across the world. Almost everything in the financial markets that BlackRock is not involved in some way. BlackRock controls affairs all across the world from their Midtown Manhattan headquarters. In addition to possessing sizable positions in major U.S. banks, they also hold sizable investments in businesses and corporations on almost every continent. Whether they are engaged in the production of automobiles in Germany, iron ore mining in South America, or gold mining in Africa. BlackRock handles everything. So how do they actually do it all? The financial industry is always evolving, so strategies that might have worked a few years ago almost certainly won't now. BlackRock has a deep awareness of this. In order to deal with these shifting tides, they moved ahead and created an immensely powerful software platform. They gave it the name Aladdin. To conduct risk assessments for BlackRock's clients is Aladdin's responsibility. It obtains private information from significant organizations like banks and insurance providers and utilizes it to produce the high-stakes risk assessments that clients of BlackRock pay excessive fees for. A network of 5,000 computers is called Aladdin. Its responsibility is to keep track of millions of trades and evaluate the portfolios of its clients around the clock. It does this by considering every conceivable scenario and pinpointing potential problems with a level of accuracy that is both frightening and unsettling, offering incredibly accurate levels of risk analysis. Since this software is so common, it has essentially evolved into the brain of some of the biggest investment firms, and I doubt you've ever heard of it. Aladdin serves many more purposes for BlackRock, in addition to risk analysis. With the use of this software, they may access private information from globally recognized institutions including banks, insurance firms, pension funds, and pension funds, giving them access to information about the management of nearly $20 trillion in assets. In addition to the enormous $10 trillion in assets, BlackRock already has access to such resources and knowledge. BlackRock has established a comfortable position for itself in the world economy. In a number of the biggest European companies, it holds shares and voting rights. In industries like energy, oil and gas, transportation, and agriculture. You are aware of the types of things society requires to remain functional. The influence of BlackRock on society is far more pervasive than you may imagine. Bonds representing governmental debt are held by it. It controls a sizable number of people's pension money and also wields political influence, regularly serving as the government's chief advisor. When the organization that oversees the whole financial system of a country has you on the quick dial, central banks will ask BlackRock to audit normal banks and provide management advice to them. You compete in a different league. The odd twist in this situation is that because BlackRock is so big, they frequently hold a significant amount of stock in these same banks. They are required to audit and advise by the central banks. This implies that BlackRock is actually seated on both sides of the table during these talks, managing banks they currently own and giving advice to the government. Even if that weren't the case, BlackRock now has even more access to confidential information, which will only help to increase its wealth. Who then was the principal force behind the creation of this titan? How wealthy must one currently be? Larry Fink, a wealthy businessman, is the guy to thank or blame for the founding of BlackRock. Fink has a reputation for wanting more than he can afford. Additionally, as someone who is intimately familiar with the markets, this combination is, to put it mildly, potent. Fink began working on Wall Street at age 23, where he worked on structuring and trading bonds. He quickly rose through the ranks and became something of a legend in a decade, helping to develop the debt securitization market, which revolutionized how loans were handled on Wall Street for better and worse. Ironically, he would only become the founder of such a powerfully wealthy company after suffering a massive $100 million loss for his employers. The story of Larry Fink's ascent to fame is certainly rife with ironic turns. He was the same individual the U.S. Treasury recruited to clean up the economic disaster after he created one of the key instruments that caused it. He would come to be known as a genuine investment genius, and at the age of 31, he became Boston's youngest managing director in company history, helping to boost their bottom line by an additional $1 billion in assets. Larry was essentially a golden goose in every sense of the word, that is, up until he stopped being. In the end, Larry's firm would suffer a $100 million loss, and he would become an overnight toxic asset who would be shunned and fired. He worked for 12 years, earning an absurd sum of money. Doesn't this sound like the ideal origin tale to fill in the gaps? Later on, he would assist in founding BlackRock and grow it into the titan it is today. Not without some bumps in the road, of course, but Larry Fink did recover, that much is evident. His net worth exceeds $1 billion. So, even though BlackRock oversees assets valued at several trillion dollars and has a say in how the U.S. government spends its money, we haven't covered all of its immense power. For starters, fewer people are aware of their extensive involvement in a few highly well-known businesses and initiatives. BlackRock has access to Apple's enormous market share in smartphones and tablets, since it holds a sizable number of Apple shares. They also own Microsoft stock. The other industry powerhouse is demonstrating to everyone that with enough cash, you don't need to create a single semiconductor to rule the sector. Because BlackRock knows exactly where to concentrate their investments, they also hold substantial stock in pharmaceutical firms like Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. Imagine, for example, avoiding spending on necessities for human survival. Furthermore, as I have indicated, a number of BlackRock's greatest investments are in significant oil corporations like ExxonMobil and Chevron. BlackRock has also made investments in a number of crucial initiatives. Its presence has grown, as has its commitment to ethical investing, good corporate governance, and the environment. They basically spent a ton of money trying to be environmentally friendly and look great doing it. BlackRock has utilized its considerable clout to highlight environmental, public health, and diversity issues through very beneficial and unquestionably crucial methods, including writing letters to CEOs and funding initiatives, like the Carbon Disclosure Project. According to reports, BlackRock has been pressuring the U.S. government to pass legislation mandating private corporations to publicly disclose their climate effect, the diversity of their boards of directors, and other factors, while also financially supporting businesses that don't follow such guidelines. Hence, BlackRock sits at both ends of the table, which, hey, can be extremely helpful. And they really are that strong. So, were you aware of the organization that secretly controls the world? Do you believe there is a business that can compete with BlackRock? If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next video.